All right guys, Lectric is back with their second version of their popular electric cargo bike, the XPedition 2.0. This time around, it's got more power, more range, better components, and somehow kept that same $13.99 price point. And yeah, that's even with today's crazy tariff market. So how do they do that? Well, I have no idea, but I do have some thoughts on how it all turned out. So let's do a deep dive on the new Lectric XPedition 2.0. All right guys, so this is a class 1, 2, and 3 capable electric bike. Now it's priced at $13.99 starting, but it has incremental price increases based on the range you want. So you can get $13.99 for the base model, you can get $16.99 for a dual battery model, or $19.99 like we have here with two of their long range batteries, which are actually larger and heavier batteries, which we'll talk about here in a second, because that comes into play when you talk about the weight of the e-bike. So they say this bike weighs, without any batteries, 65 pounds, and then each battery weighs about 9 pounds. Now, this one being the dual long-range version, without batteries, it is 72 pounds. The reason why it's a little bit heavier than 65 is because we've added all the extra accessories. If you go to Lectric's site to buy one of these, there's a lot of upgraded parts and components and accessories to make this more usable every day. And so we went ahead and added those for a more realistic number. And the way it kits out with the added accessories, without any batteries at all and just the accessories installed, it's about 72 pounds. You add one long-range battery, that becomes about 81 pounds. And then you add the second one and it becomes just shy of 90 pounds, around 89.8 or 89.7, right in that range. Just to give you an idea of how much weight you're working with. Definitely a two-person lift, not something you're gonna easily pick up and toss around, but lots going on for that price and that weight, which we'll talk about, especially capability, which is really important on a cargo bike. Now this is UL 2849 certified and the batteries are UL 2271 certified. In terms of colors, this is the Stratus white, but they also have a raindrop blue color to pick from, and it only comes in one frame configuration, but the good news is that fits a wide range rider height from 4'11 all the way to 6'5, and that's basically because they've added some things like adjustable stems and a massive seat post range of 17 inches to give you tons of flexibility to make this fit work best for you. Now, when it comes to things like the geo numbers for the frame, we've got a 21-inch standover height, we've got about 55-inch wheelbase, we've got an adjustable stem up top, so that reach can vary between 17 inches and 24 inches, and then like I said, that seat post has a 17-inch adjustable range, so really lots of room to kind of make this fit for you based on your reach and your leg height and things like that. Now, in terms of the bike itself, so we'll start here at the bottom. One of the newer upgrades here is this dual-legged kickstand. It's a nice wide footprint. It's got nice stable, grippy, basically footprints that stick out at a massive 15 inches wide. And what that does is that makes this very stable when it's sitting here, but on top of that, more stable when you're loading cargo, including precious cargo like kids or pets and baskets and things like that. You can get on this bike with it loaded up and just push off and roll forward and you're good to go, instead of having to hold all that weight, balance it, get off, kickstand, get back on and go. They just made it really user-friendly and intuitive where you could just get on, push forward and go without worrying about tipping anything over or balancing the bike. Now, in terms of wheels and tires, we've got 20-inch wheels, alloy wheels, and 2.5-inch tires. Now, these tires have puncture resistance. They also come pre-installed with slime for puncture protection, and they are a nice commuter tread pattern, so they're fairly slick, but do have some seeping and ways for water and grip and cornering, riding in wet days, things like that. Just no off-road knobby terrain, which clearly makes sense for a bike like this. Now, when it comes to things like accessories, we've got not only front to back fenders that are plastic, which I always appreciate, but they also added these extended shrouds that cover the backs of the wheels, which if you think about having precious cargo, your kids, you definitely don't want their fingers going down, getting bored and getting stuck in a tire, which that was a really smart invention or just addition to the fenders. But then it also, after these venting places, is solid up here to protect you from getting wet when you go through puddles and things like that. So it kind of serves a dual purpose role of giving you fenders on the bike, but also keeping your kids' fingers and feet out of the way of the wheel should they accidentally reach down in there. Now, in terms of lighting, we've got both a upgraded headlight there, which comes free with the bike, a brake light and tail light, and we got turn signals on this. So whether you're riding this around town or whether you're riding it in the city, commuting, doesn't really matter. This bike has all the features you're going to want to safely get around and let people around you know what you plan on doing, whether that's braking or turning. All right guys, so let's talk about power on the new XPedition 2.0. So we've got a 750 watt rear hub motor, but it can peak at 1310 watts, and it's got a pretty impressive 85 Newton meters of torque, which is what gives it a nice massive 450 pound payload. Now that payload can be made up of either a 350 pound rider or a 300 pounds rear rack weight, some sort of combination, just cannot exceed 450 pounds. Now this motor has a torque sensor that feels really good thanks to Lectric's PWR Plus programming, which is just some clever programming they've done on the back end of the torque sensor that helps know when to just make it feel natural, but also that you're riding a cargo bike and you're going to need that extra oomph when you need it. It's just a nice balance of both worlds and some smart programming on their end. Now in terms of the riding modes, you've got PAS levels 1 through 5. And you've also got selections up in the display to make this class 1, 2, or 3 based on whatever you're looking to do in your rides. And I'll show you that when we get to the display section. Now, when it comes to the battery, there's lots of options here. So I'll just kind of try to make it as easy as I can without getting confused myself or confusing you. So the way it comes, if you buy the standard version of this bike at $13.99, you do get one battery, a single battery setup, and that can go up to 60 miles. Now you can go pay $300 more at $16.99 and get 2 of those, and that will give you up to 120 miles in theory. Then they have the dual long range version, which uses 2 larger batteries. These are 840 watt hours apiece, and they say between the 2 of these, you should get up to an impressive 170 miles of range on your rides. Now, to remove these, it's very simple. They come with a set of keys. You put the key in, you can pull it right out, put it right back in. No covers, no weird release latches, nothing to get in the way. It's super simple and intuitive. But when it comes to things like warranty, it's got a 1-year warranty on the bike, and that includes the batteries and motor as well as the components. So just kind of a standard 1-year warranty. And then when we talk about real world range numbers, so I took this out. We actually got sent 2 of these. We got a blue one and a white one. I just went ahead and just rode one of them. I rode the blue one for the range test. And when I did that, I had the dual long range battery set up. So in theory, I should get 170 miles. So I ran only one battery just to kind of give a middle of the road test. And I got, on minimum assistance, I was able to get 68 miles, which in theory, if I would have had 2 of these, would have gave me about 136 miles. So a little bit shy of the 170 estimation. And then on max test, so going kind of full blast on one battery, I got 38 miles, which in theory would give me somewhere around 76 miles. I'm not the best at my math off the top of my head, but basically really good numbers. Almost 80 miles on a max full blast and almost 140 miles with 2 of the batteries set up with this dual long range setup. There's 840 watt hours between each one of these batteries, and combined it gives you a total access to 1680 watt hours, and 140 miles on one charge is pretty wild for a bike. Granted, that's in PAS 1 and pretty ideal conditions like flat terrain, not a lot of stopping, but ideally those are really solid numbers with really big range numbers. All right guys, so let's talk components on the new XPedition 2.0. So we've got, starting back here, a Shimano Altus 8-speed drivetrain, which is up from last version's 7-speed drivetrain. Now this Altus is mated to an 11-32 rear cassette with a pretty massive 52-tooth chainring up front. Now as far as pedaling goes, obviously this being a cargo bike that weighs almost 90 pounds with this dual range setup, it's not something you're going to be riding without the batteries. I'm sure you could, or you definitely can, but it's going to be tough, obviously. So this gear range with the electric assistance is a very solid setup that lets you tackle hills, flats alike without really any issues at all. Now up front, we have 170 millimeter alloy cranks, and on those we have really nice pedals. They give us flat pedals that have nice traction studs and reflectors, and they're alloy pedals, not plastic ones. And in addition, they are quick release, so you don't have to thread them on and thread them off. They have quick release collars. You simply slide it back, pull it off, push it back on. Really nice setup, really easy to use. Make sure you do put them on and get them firmly on there. This is one of their kind of 1.0 versions of their quick release pedals. They have a new version, but this older version, not older, but this version of them does sometimes make it feel like it's good. And if you don't give it a good jiggle, it could kind of pop off. So just make sure those are nice and secure when you set them up. Now, when it comes to braking, we have hydraulic disc brakes, both front and back, with 180 millimeter rotors and 2 piston calipers. Now, they did beef up the rotors by going 2.2 millimeters thick, which is a little bit larger than the typical 1.8 millimeters we usually see. The braking is sufficient on this, but you do feel like in some situations you might be stressing it, especially on a quick stop if you're under load. I would prefer to see 4-piston brakes on here with maybe 203 rotors, or at least a 203 up front. But nonetheless, 2-piston calipers with hydraulic disc brakes is the current setup. Now up here in the saddle, this is their upgraded saddle that they will send you with the upgraded suspension post. suspension seat post that gives you a little bit of travel here to absorb some of the impacts while you're riding. That just prevents the road vibrations from going straight up into your lower back and spine, and lets some of the saddle do some of the absorbing for you. Now, this also has a really massive, like 17 inches of range to kind of dial in your height. It's a nice setup, super comfortable, and they've added kind of a cool little grab handle, or at least that's the way it feels. It feels like you can intuitively grab it right here if you need to move it, which is also nice. Now up front, they've added a Courier 50 front suspension fork. So we have front suspension with 50 millimeters of travel. Why 50 millimeters? Well, because this is not an off-road bike, it's not meant to go off-road, so you don't need 120, 140 or anything crazy like a mountain bike would need, but you do get enough, just enough room to absorb those bumps, those impacts, those changes in pavement. That's where this thing really shines, and it does a good job of making the ride just that much more comfortable, especially when you pair it with the suspension seat post. Now this has 50 millimeters of travel, like I said, as you can see, you just push into it, and that will do a good job of just making the bike ride more comfortable. Now up top here, we've got a folding steer tube, which will allow you to kind of make a smaller footprint when you're storing this if you need to, and that's got a quick release lever action on it. And then we have an adjustable stem lever, so you can adjust the stem based on your reach and how you want to ride. You can kind of play with that and get that where you want to go, and then lock it back in place. The cool thing about this is there's no tools required. You saw that the way I did that. It's firm, it's easy to use, and you can change it on the go without having to bring a toolkit or have some Allen wrenches in your pocket to adjust this. If you don't like the feel or the fit while you're riding, pull over, change it, pop it back, you're good to go, no tools required. Now here in the cockpit, we've got all of our cables coming off the front end into some cable wraps, and they eventually go down into the frame. Up top here, we've got an alloy handlebar. It's got a little rise to it for just kind of improving that comfort reach. Both ends have ergonomic Lectric branded rubber grips that are lock-on. Lock-on grips are always going to be nicer than slide-on grips because, well, they lock on. So in other words, they're not going to slide, they're not going to bend, they're not going to, over time as the rubber gets worn out, they stay right where they should. They also have ergonomic pads for kind of resting your hands on. They're really comfortable grips. Now in the cockpit itself, so both ends, obviously the grips, both ends also have the brake levers for the hydraulic disc brakes. On this right side, we have the Shimano Altus trigger shifters, which is another nice upgrade because last time around we had an over-the-bar kind of that, I say they're pretty goofy shifters. Back in the day, they had the over-the-bar kind of non-intuitive shifters. These just feel natural, they feel easy to use, and you can do it without thinking about it. Over on this side, we have our push throttle and our PAS control buttons with our turn signal buttons as well. And then in the center here, we have the display, and there's a lot going on in the display. So let's go ahead and take a look at that display and kind of walk you through those features. All right, so this is the layout of the home screen on the XPedition 2.0. So right off the bat, we have our battery indicator up top along with the output wattage. If I was pedaling this real time, you'd be seeing the watt numbers go over the screen real time, changing while you ride. In the center is the speed, below that is the PAS, and at the bottom is the odometer. If you cycle through the power button by tapping it, you can get the trip meter as well as the volts and the current, time of day, our time of ride, and then back to your odometer. Now that's a pretty simple setup. Obviously, if we do things like hold the plus button, we will get the headlight indicator saying the front light is on, and if we hold it again, that will turn off. And if we hold the negative button down, PAS, that would activate walk mode, which is adjustable between 3 miles an hour and 3.7 miles an hour, just depending on which speed you prefer more, one or the other. Now, speaking of those type of tweaks and settings, there's one area to access settings on this app, and you hold both the plus and minus buttons at the same time, and you see you get these kind of coded menus. Now, the good news is if you go to, just in our review, we have a link to the owner's manual, as well as obviously Lectric itself has that owner's manual on the website. But just going to the owner's manual has a whole table of what each of these do. I'll cycle through them pretty quick, but just some of them that you might want to know about. The screen display brightness there is 0.1p. 0.2 is going to be the distance units between miles and kilometers. 0.4 is going to be how long the bike takes to sleep when you walk away and you don't use it, how long it takes to turn off. 6 is going to be the range used to compute speed and distance travel. Speed limit, here you can change between class 2 and class 3 and PO8. PO9 is going to be things like the throttle start, whether the throttle is active from a standstill or throttle active only when you're already moving. That's kind of a nice safety feature as well. You've also got things like the light operation in P12, and you've got the walk mode you can change in P13, as well as P22. You can change assistance level to cap speeds at certain levels. So it's just really kind of, you pull out the manual, whichever one you want to tweak, you can go in here and do it. And then when you're done, you can just hold plus and minus and you'll go back to that home screen. But no app for Lectric. They keep things super simple. Probably part of the way they're able to keep prices so low. No IT you know, guys building apps and programming apps all day. Nice simple setup with all the basic tweaks you would need to do everything from speed to the creature comforts, like how bright your lights are, your display is. Just a nice, easy, simple system to use, but with the only downside being you do have to pull out the manual unless you're able to remember these, which I'm not. All right, guys, we are out here on the Lectric XPedition 2.0. And when you get on this bike, the riding position is very comfortable because you got a nice upright frame geometry with stem here that just lets you kind of just sit in a very comfortable position. You're not leaning forward. It's not aggressive at all. It's something you could just casually ride around town, run your errands, and not feel like, you know, after an hour of this, you're going to be uncomfortable. It's super comfortable, and then that's complemented by a couple factors. The tires, you know, they're wider volume, so they've got more room to give you a little cushion in the rubber compound, soak up small vibrations. Then you've got the Courier 50 mil front suspension fork, which also can take up some of the impacts on the front end. And then on the back end, I'm really becoming a fan of the suspension seat posts. It just, that little bit of travel in your sit bones, it goes a long way in taking away that felt impact when you go over a bump on your rear tire. So all in all, they all really work together for a pretty comfortable ride. Now the motor, you also notice pretty quickly, it's pretty strong, it's pretty effective, and you can tell this thing was made to handle, you know, to carry a lot. And it's true, you know, cargo e-bike ways. But that doesn't mean that that's going to happen by default. Sometimes we see cargo e-bikes that feel a little underpowered. This one definitely does not. Let's do a quick little motor test here. So I've currently got it in class 3 unlocked. So let's go to PAS5, and I'll just do a throttle test to 20, and then I'm going to keep going to 28 with the pedals, and we'll see how all that translates. So 3, 2, 1. Really quick off the line, I love that. Already at 15 and 20. So now I'll just keep pedaling. And right there, we're at 28 miles an hour. So really, really quick, really nice acceleration, nice off the line throttle response and torque. You can really feel that 85 Newton meters go. And then being able to peak over 1300, you can just tell it's kind of built to do a lot. And the other factor there is the torque sensor. So we've got this nice torque sensor on here, keeps the pedaling really smooth, and their PWR plus programming. You know, all these are just marketing terms and nice ways of saying that they've really worked on the programming and their torque sensors and their motors and their throttle, and it just equates to a really nice, capable ride. Now, I will say, of course, that's going to be affected when you do things like weigh it down, right? So it can hold a big 450-pound payload, but what happens if I fill up that back end with 300 pounds and I treat the bike the same way with full blast throttle? Of course, it's still going to be capable, but you're not going to see the same speeds, just like a nice, capable pickup truck. You attach an RV to it, that it's rated for, and it, you know, it's not going to be the same 0 to 60. So the same logic applies to these e-bikes. Let's go up this little hill here, and I'm just going to hold the throttle. I have no doubts it's going to do very well. And so this is just kind of a mild, typical climb, about 6-7% for about a quarter mile. And it's pegged basically at 20 miles an hour. It's holding at 19.4, 19.5. And this is the steepest part here coming up. This gets a little bit over 7%, and we're holding 19.8. It just dropped to 19.4 for a second. Nope, 19.1, 19.0, 18.8. So we're losing a little bit here in the, oh wait, we're in PAS 3. Let's go back to PAS 5. And just like that, we immediately climbed right back up to 20 miles an hour, or 19.8 where it stops itself, but 20 on my app. I'm gonna use my turn signal here to turn into the neighborhood. You can see the little indicator hopefully on the screen. That lets the car behind me know. And if you don't remember to turn it off, it will just stay on and you'll be that person on the road with a turn signal going. I'd like to see in future programming them change. Some bikes do it now, like I think I saw a Trek that recently did it, but basically just change the programming, the code base to say, you know, once the turn signal's on, after, I don't know, 10, 12 seconds, just automatically kick it off if the user hasn't already. But that's a lot of developer talk. All right, so let's go and do our left turn signal here. And let's go down this hill and go about, let's just get up to 25 miles an hour and hit the brakes and see how they do. So we'll go here. This thing's fast. 15, 18, 20. Turn up the turn signal. All right, we're over 26 miles an hour. 3, 2, 1. So really nice stopping power. You guys have heard me say I wish there's 4-piston caliper brakes on here, and that remains true. It's not that I take back that statement or recant it, but I'm thinking about the total use of the bike, the person who's gonna buy it, and the things they might put it through. Like we talked about, you've got this massive payload, so what happens when I fill it up? What happens when I have, you know, 150 pounds or 200 pounds worth of my children on the back of this? I'm gonna want that same stopping power to be just as confident. Now, I'm not saying it's not, I just don't have 300 pounds to throw on the back of here and do a 25 mile an hour stop. It's just something to think about, but the great part is, if it bothers you or you really want those upgraded brakes, you can simply just go down to your bike shop and they can swap out your calipers and brakes for some beefier ones if you need it. I don't think most people will. I think most people will be perfectly happy with these brakes, but it's just a fair observation to point out for you guys who don't have your hands on the bike, you know, at home before you make an order. All in all, this, let me get through there. Hi. Hey guys. Hi. All in all, this thing is going to be very solid for a lot of things. I think it's a great daily commuter. Like if I, you know, didn't want a car payment and deal with the gas and expenses, and I wanted something that I could rely on getting me around quickly, had front to back lighting and turn signals, could carry a big load if I grabbed groceries or may want to take the kids to school. That's where these bikes really, really shine. They're just super capable and they're very versatile for how you use them. You can have this as a weekend trip, just cruise around and have fun, or you can make it a workhorse and run a, you know, run your daily life off of it. They're just really that versatile. Obviously, these aren't going to be off-road machines. You're not going to go jumping these or single-track mountain bikes, but they're not made for that. And I don't think too many people think you would, but it's worth throwing it out there when you say things are super capable. But yeah, the gearing range is nice. I'm pedaling at 20 miles an hour in 8th gear, or 8th, you know, out of all 8 speeds, the highest one. And even when I get up to 27, 28, I still have feedback in these pedals. So the gearing ratio they went with was really nice, giving you nice top-end speed gearing, but still having those low climbing speeds for, you know, the occasion where you have a really steep hill, and then you also have the beauty of the motor built into it. So just Lectric did a really good job on this one. I've enjoyed this 2.0. But let's go back and look at it, and we'll kind of talk about this from a mechanic standpoint. I might harp on the brakes one more time, but other than that, this thing's been super solid, fun to ride, very stable, very stiff. Really guys, not a lot of complaints at all. But let's go back and put it on the rack and talk about it. All right guys, so when we talk about owning the XPedition 2.0, there's some things that you can tell once you get your hands on it like I have and you've been able to ride it for a while and put it together. You kind of learn some traits about it that you might not see or notice when you're on a product page and putting it in your shopping cart, and just be some things that'd be valuable to know before you make that purchase, kind of just helping you out on the back end before you make a decision. So I'm going to start with some of the things I like about this, and then I'll touch on some things that I would like to see improved, and we'll kind of leave that up to you. So starting back here, I like that they moved up to a 8-speed Shimano drivetrain. This HG cassette with the Altus rear derailleur and the chainring, all of these are parts that are easily findable at your local bike shops. Most shops, if they don't have it in stock, can have it in stock within a day or two because it's just such a common series of parts. No proprietary or unheard of third-party parts that might leave you wondering or waiting from a bike shop to get those. Now, in addition to that, the open frame design. So should you need to access controllers, worry about wiring, things like that, the open frame design has easy access to things like controllers, batteries, everything in the chain is exposed. It's just really easy to get in and out of here and deal with it if you need to. With that said, there are still some wires inside this down tube, but nonetheless, the open frame design just makes life easier should you have to work on the bike. Now, moving up front here, I love the quick release pedals. Now, pedals might not seem like a big deal to people as far as installing them and uninstalling them, but Most all pedals have a reverse thread based on the side of the bike you're on. It's confusing for people who don't do it every day. This is super easy. They're stamped with right and left, and then you don't have to worry about which way you're threading it because they have that nice quick release collar. Then up front here, we have the foldable steer tube. Now this is really nice because this bike already has a long wheelbase, but if you need to pack it up, put it in storage somewhere, and you don't want this giant part sticking up, you can always just fold that down, lower it out of the way, and it's good to go. Last thing up front here, we have a through axle up front with the suspension fork. A through axle just makes it really easy with a quick release lever to unscrew it, but it's a nice beefy rod instead of a thin QR skewer. We get a nice full through axle that provides a better support connection for the front fork to the front tire. So some things I would change about this or just don't like about this. I should say from the beginning, there's no crazy proprietary parts on here that you're not going to be able to get dealt with, except for things like specific to maybe Lectric's branded adjustable stem. But your components, your braking, your drivetrain components, things that might fail or need servicing, everything on here is going to be serviceable and easy to fix at your local bike shop or yourself if you do your own maintenance. So some things I would improve, I'm going to start with the display. Yes, the display is clean, simple to use, and easy at a glance, but there's certain things that people might want to access on a more regular basis. Say the grandkids want to take it for a ride, say you're new and you want to adjust the speed controls. You don't always want to break out a manual when it's time to make it a change to an adjustment setting. So I'd like to see some plain English languages on the manuals, or excuse me, on the displays, so you could manage those a lot easier without needing a manual in your back pocket. Now, like I said, we have the manual links on our website in the review, as well as Lectric's website. I would recommend just downloading it to your phone. That way you can pull that manual out on the side of the road if you are out and about and need to make an adjustment. And then also, I really like the fact, I didn't bring it up a second ago, but this pulley support here for the longer chain is excellent. And then on top, because there's still going to be some chain slap from time to time, they did a really nice beefed up version of this chain stay protector here that should last quite a while. It's not a thin film, it's a pretty durable rubber, or kind of a rubber pad, and that's going to go a long way in protecting this frame. And then only other complaint from this is kind of still related to the braking. This is a big bike. It weighs 90 pounds. It's going to require 2 people to lift it. It's going to be, it can store your kids and cargo, and braking power is super important. Now it does stop sufficiently, it's not unsafe to brake with, but in the event you're loaded up with all your gear, you're close to max capacity, and you need to do a short stop, this 2-piston caliper brake setup could struggle in that situation. And so if I owned this, the one thing I'd probably look to do is just swap the 2 pistons to a 4-piston caliper setup for some solid braking potential. But other than that, pretty well done, and not anything else to complain about. All right guys, so there you have it, the new XPedition 2.0 from Lectric. As you can see, quite capable, 450-pound payload, class 3 speeds, lots of adjustability, tons of accessories and items you can add to it. It's definitely a cargo bike worth your attention. And again, in today's wild e-bike prices, somehow they kept the starting price of that 60-mile range version still at $13.99. Like I said in the intro, I don't know how they do it, but they've done it pretty well. Now, if you want to add other accessories and gear for it, just go check out their website. Not only do they include lots of extra freebies right now, like the suspension seat post, the upgraded headlights and running boards, but lots of other things, as well as other optional things, from everything from it ships with a 2-amp charger, but you could upgrade to a 5-amp charger that would increase charging times by up to 250%. Now, if I missed something that you want to know about this bike, just drop a comment down below. I'll figure it out, I'll find out, and I will get back to you in the comments. And if you don't have any other questions, I'll see you guys next time with another review.